What's up guys, my name is Moo. I'm a college student who loves reading and I'm here to share that love with all of you. We are going to get right into it. This is the second part of the mouse duology I'm doing. If you want to see the first part of this video, make sure to pop up right here to see it, but we're going to get right into the second Mouse book, which is And Here My Troubles Began. This is the second part to Mouse, and it is even more impactful than the first. This book not only explores the history of a survivor, but also the intergenerational trauma that comes from being the child of a survivor. And I think it gives that unique perspective and does it well. Because of course Art Spiegelman is not a Holocaust survivor. However, he still speaks on how this affected him in a respectful way that does not take over the story at all or diminish anything his father has gone through, and I think it again was so well done. Now this book covers Vladek in Auschwitz. That's what most of this book covers. Of course it still goes back to modern times. By that I mean when Art is interviewing his father, but it is mostly Vladek in the concentration camp and how he survives. This book goes into extreme detail from the beginning. Vladek is taken to Auschwitz, selected to be a part of the work camp as opposed to being sent to the gas chamber, which is how millions of Jewish people died during the Holocaust. And he gets stripped of all his clothing, all his belongings get taken away. He's thrown clothing that may or may not even fit him, thrown 2 shoes, may not even be in a pair, may not fit him, and is branded. His hair is cut, his identity is taken away from him, and he is now a prisoner within the concentration camps. This book shows his perspective. He watches prisoners be beaten and taken away, randomly selected, randomly shot. He talks about how during meals, the best place to stand in line, because if you're too far in the front, your soup is just water, but if you're too far in the back, you may get nothing at all. He talks about the barracks and how they were all squished in a bed like sardines, and it was so uncomfortable, but they were just packed in there. There are no holds barred. Like I said in the last video, you can see the anguish on the characters' faces because these characters represent real people. I mean, even in this cover alone, you can see so much emotion out of these simple lines. Art Spiegelman is a phenomenal artist because of the emotion he can capture within these drawings. Both when I went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and while reading this book, it was the depiction of the gas chambers that really affected me the most. There is a really impactful model at the Holocaust Museum that shows the process of those gas chambers, and like that, there are very detailed drawings of what go on in the gas chambers in this book, and in both instances I teared up. I'm not the type of person to cry easily. I admittedly am able to read and watch through gruesome true events with very little external emotion, but the gas chamber depictions in both the museum and this book did make me tear up, which is more emotion than I usually ever display when reading these types of things and indulging in this type of media. I don't know if that's the right word, but you guys know what I mean. And it's just terrifying. The drawing is terrifying. I honestly don't know if I'd want to show it. I think that if it is something that you want to see, you should have to choose to see it yourself, because it is that impactful. I encourage all of you to read Holocaust memoirs because I really think that's important, but I also need to acknowledge that this is a very heavy topic. It is very haunting drawings, and they're not drawings that I really would want to share with an audience who I'm not sure is ready to see them. There's another part of the book that really got me that shows the intergenerational trauma probably best in this entire book, and it is Art, who is at his desk drawing a scene, and it slowly pans out through each panel, and you just see the lifeless bodies of victims of the Holocaust, most of them extremely thin, extremely weak, mostly in anguish on their faces as they are dead. And that really got me because it just shows how much this impacted him. As someone who was not in the Holocaust himself, he still felt this huge weight on his shoulders and went into a deep depression because of what he had been hearing from his father. And I don't blame him. And I think that it was good that he added that in the book because it showed just how difficult it is for the children of survivors, and it doesn't take away from the horrors of the Holocaust, but it adds insight in a way that I haven't really seen in any other books. So I will always think of that scene. It is one that is seared into my brain. It is one that was extremely important in my opinion, and I'm glad that he added it. Obviously, as I have said many times before, this book is extremely graphic, but I believe that's necessary. We need to be exposed to the horrors of the past so that we don't repeat it in the future. In the past couple years, there has been debates on books that should be allowed in schools. And when I heard that Mouse was a book that was getting banned, I got extremely upset. I read this book for the first time in school. I was in 8th grade. I was 14 years old. Yes, it was a hard read, but I was still able to handle it. There are plenty of kids who would be able to handle this topic. Do I think that elementary schoolers should be reading it? No. I watched a cartoon of the Civil War that had no graphics at all. It was PG, it was school appropriate, and I still had nightmares back in school. However, I think in middle and high schools at the very least, we should have books like this. How are we going to teach children history if we teach it to them through rose-colored glasses? I talked about it a bit in Orphan Train, but there's a term called pajamification. I don't think it's an official term. I saw it for the first time on Twitter, and people used the term on Twitter to write articles about it, but they call it the pajamification of American school systems. This basically means that the curriculum for the Holocaust includes a little bit of textbook information and then the Boy in Striped Pajamas. As I have said before, I don't think the Boy in Striped Pajamas is a bad book. I don't think it's written poorly. However, I think it's a very inaccurate, very biased depiction of the Holocaust, and I don't think that was intentional either. But, intentional or not, it shows a German boy who is the son of a Nazi officer becoming friends with a child in the Holocaust who is a prisoner at Auschwitz, and they become friends through the fence, and it shows the childlike innocence and how this hate and discrimination is taught, and it ends in tragedy, and it's really sad. I don't think the author of that book intended for the Boy in Striped Pajamas to become curriculum for people in America. It's a story about the innocence of children. It is not a story about the Holocaust. You barely get any information about it because it's from a child's perspective. This child doesn't understand. So when you're giving this book to children and students and displaying it as, oh, this is to help you understand the Holocaust, it really doesn't show enough. It sympathizes with the families of German officers. It doesn't show what happens at all in the camps besides some really watered down depictions. It's just not a good book to teach about the true horrors of this Holocaust. And I know that something like Mouse is extremely graphic. It's not something that I believe should be made for students to read, because I know there's some people that just don't feel like they can handle it, and that's okay, but it should be an option. I read Mouse in 8th grade because we were told that we were allowed to choose which book we wanted to read, and I chose Mouse from a list of books because I went, oh, it's a graphic novel, this should be interesting, this is a good piece of media that I haven't seen before, I'll see how it is, that kind of thing, and it changed my life forever. I think that even though I was interested in the Holocaust before, Mouse changed my trajectory, and now I read any memoir I can. Mouse is important. It should be there for students who want to learn more. I read Night in high school. It's not like they just do the Boy in Striped Pajamas. I did read Night in high school. However, I still think that we should not be removing the real stories of real survivors from shelves. I don't see how that would affect children in any way except for negatively. We should not be showing them history through rose-colored glasses. We should instead be showing them the reality of what happened and how we can work to not repeat it in the future. I recently learned that some companies were rewriting books that they deemed offensive that were written in the past, and I think that's a disservice. Obviously, if you look at me, I obviously am very white. I can't talk for other people. However, I think that erasing history, no matter how uncomfortable, is really a disservice because it takes away the thoughts that these people had and creates a space for misinformation, which will only harm us in the future. I'm not saying that every kid should have a graphic and thorough understanding of the Holocaust, but it should be more than the Boy in Striped Pajamas. There are children who want to learn. There are children who find this stuff interesting or terrifying or anything like that and want to learn more, so we should not be taking that away from them. I don't live in a state where this happens much. I live in a very progressive state and we don't ban many books. However, it's a problem throughout all of America, and what is done to protect children is really just causing a disservice for them. It's upsetting and it makes me angry, and that's a big reason why I wanted to review this book, to make a video about this book, because I read it when I was 14 years old, and I've been told that I've always been a little more mature than the average person of my age group. However, the point still stands. If I could read this at 14, then high schoolers should be able to read it too. At least, if not middle schoolers, at least 8th graders. Books like this are just very important, and if you're a young person who has any interest in things like this at all, I encourage you to seek that information. It's how we change the world for the better. But I'm going to end this video here. Getting a little worked up, man. A little bit out of breath, but I'm going to go eat breakfast because it is not even 9 a.m. yet. I just felt the second I woke up that I needed to film this video today, so I did, because it's very important to me. I think everyone should read this book if they can handle it. Everybody. But that's all I have to say about it today. Without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!